We've learned a lot of things, everything from greening production to greening your distribution, greening streaming, greening distribution, to new production tools, to what's going on with diversity and accessibility. It's been a very interesting day. But I'm very excited to talk about our last session today, the future strategies for streaming. Netflix may have revolutionized TV viewing, but obviously binge viewing, streaming, all that is being taken up by lots of other people as well, lots of other companies, legacy media companies, as well as new players, as well as broadcasting, VOD. There's a lot going on in that sector. Now we're getting advertising attached to some of these subscription VOD services that said they, of course, would never have advertising, and now they're all going to add it. So it's very interesting what's going on. There's a lot of competition for subscribers and now for viewers because they're going to be watching free with advertising. We discussed what would be great to have at the end of today, and we thought it would be wonderful to have someone who could give us sort of the big picture vision of what's going on in the streaming world. And he's a colleague of mine who I greatly admire, and he's online now, I'm hoping. He's going to pop up. There he is, Evan. So Evan Shapiro, he's a media cartographer. He is a change agent. His company is called eShap. He's in New York. He's not with us, unfortunately. Hi, Evan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you for being
here.
I can hear you. Yes, perfect.
Great.
Evan is an Emmy and Peabody Award-winning producer, including Portlandia and Harmon Quest. He's also a professor at NYU and Fordham Universities in their School of Businesses. He's the co-host of the Cancel Culture podcast, if you want to check in that. And he also helms a change agent consultancy. But a lot of us know Evan because he does graphics and charts. He calls himself a cartographer. He's a cartographer of the media universe. His ability to combine rapidly changing marketplace data with engaging visual descriptions, depicted with bubbles and all kinds of things that you'll see when he shows them to you. They're really dynamic maps. He changes them a lot, and then, of course, he has commentary that goes along with it. So without further ado, I really would like to welcome Evan. Evan, give us your view on what's happening in the change makers space, and I'll hand it over to you. Evan Shapiro.
Thanks so much. So I'll just jump in where Kate left off, which is the map of the media universe. And I first took up this map to teach a class that I do every semester, including summer, between NYU and Fordham. So I toggle between the two schools. And in doing so, I teach this class that charts the media universe in real time, and I needed a dashboard. I needed a backbone for the course. So I set out to make this. It was way, way, way more work than I intended it to be. I update it every single month. And actually, I updated more than that. I updated it a little bit this week. And when you do that, it gives you, when you track the twists and turns of several different markets. So this map is meant to represent the four major markets or segments of media: audio, video, social, and gaming. And if you don't think of all of them together, that's one of the reasons why this map was created. Gaming is actually the largest segment of the media economy, surpassed video in 2021 with about $200 billion in sales. Yep. So the idea here was to put all of the players in all four segments on this map so you could see the gravitational pull. And when you track the twists and turns of these four segments across all of these various companies, month by month, year by year, it gives you a shape for change. It shows you the rate of change in real time. And it shows you basically trends of where the ecosystem is going and things that might happen. So for example, there are four major drivers that I see in the ecosystem right now. The first is the gravitational pull of these trillion-dollar Death Stars. That was actually the major impetus to create this map in the first place, was to put these massive, largest companies in the history of mankind on the map in media with the other major players in media for the first time. And it shows the basically inevitable pull these companies are going to have. So much of what happens in this ecosystem will be in direct result of or in response to one of these big, massive Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet. And when you think about why that is, think about how much of your smartphone market is controlled by just two companies, Apple and Alphabet. So for every other company on this map who wants to get to their consumers through mobile, they must go through Alphabet and Apple. To go through connected televisions, which is an increasingly important part of the ecosystem, you're going to have to go through Google TV and Amazon Fire, in addition to Samsung and Roku. And so that's a couple of examples of the gravitational pull there. The second the second major driver in the ecosystem will be the balance between advertising and subscriptions, between single unit sales like ads and downloads and discs, and recurring revenue levers, but also bundles or rundles. So subscriptions or memberships or ongoing licenses to products. A great example of that is Apple. They were a company that was solely focused on single individual hardware sales. Now they are a company increasingly focused on services. Amazon is a company that was increasingly focused was mostly focused on subscription through Prime, but in the last couple of years has greatly risen as the third largest advertising platform, single unit sales on the face of this earth. Companies who get that balance well, like Apple and Amazon, will do well. Companies that do not get that balance well, like Netflix, has only been subscription, or Meta, who has only been advertising, they will struggle over the next couple of years. The third major shift is a generational one between Generation Y and a world dominated by boomers and Generation X, and one dominated by Generation Y, Generation Z, and Generation A. And when you look at the shape of the planet, Europe is a little bit different from the rest of the world, where it is actually aging at a very rapid rate, and has a much larger percentage of over 40 than under 40. But globally speaking, the majority of the population is under 40, 63%. And when you think about the rate of change in this ecosystem over the next 10 years, you have to think about millennials and Gen Zs taking over the workforce and the economic levers. You have to think about the ways that these knowledge workers will change the way that content is used and consumed. 60% of America's workforce are now knowledge workers. Around 45% of Europe's workforce are knowledge workers, often working not in a central place. And so the rate of change around a group of people who were born online and collaborate and purchase things digitally will greatly influence how this ecosystem spins over the next 10 or 20 years. And then lastly, the big major driver that's really influenced me over the last really 6 months is every business model on this map. Every small ecosystem within this ecosystem has had their models and their cultures unnaturally accelerated over the last 3 years because of lockdown. The compression of time and space and adoption and adaption, and really weird new forms of collaboration and sharing and storing things and platforms to do it on has accelerated many of these companies far further than they thought they would be at this point. Netflix did not anticipate having ads so soon because they unnaturally accelerated their subscription base over the last 3 years and are further along. They're past their teenage years and into what would be the kind of golden years of TVdom, adding advertising. The same could be said for Roku. The same could be said for Spotify, whose subscribers have matured, I think, faster than they would intended. Comcast has reached peak distribution of broadband in the United States faster than they thought they would. But also Disney Plus got to 220 million worldwide subs far faster than they thought they would. The rate of change has increased to a minute-by-minute, second-by-second heartbeat over the last couple of years for all of these companies. We will not understand the true after effects. The Great Depression and World War II had multi-generational impact. Post-World War II created the baby boom, the largest generation until that point to ever walk the earth, the suburbs, the middle class. We won't know what this odd shared crisis will create, but it will be as substantial. And if you're not looking at the rate of change on a minute-by-minute basis, it will catch up to you and appear like a nephew that you haven't seen in a couple of years, way bigger than you ever thought it could be. And so you have to think about business models on this map, maturing and changing and adapting in ways that we could not have foreseen. Those who anticipated the change mid-lockdown, Apple, who instituted new privacy rules on their app store a year ago in order to protect us, says their branding, but really to take a huge share out of the advertising mobile market from Meta, from Snap, from Twitter, who are now having very bad years as a direct result of that action. Would Apple have moved so far so fast if not for this accelerated adoption of usage around the planet? Would Netflix be at the point where they are rushing an ad product to market? Would Roku be in a situation where they're actively floating ideas about selling themselves? So any content, any media business, any business in this ecosystem that is going to operate over the next 10 years is going to find itself in a new level of age that it didn't anticipate being here. And the rate of change it will see over the next 5 to 10 years is constant. Disruption is the new operating system of this ecosystem. And if you're not prepared to wake up stupid every day and learn something new about your own ecosystem, you will be ill prepared for what comes next. And I'm pretty sure, but we did not rehearse this, that's where I'm supposed to take a break and take a sip of water and get some questions.
That's exactly right. Good. Well done. Good. The pre-production worked. So are there any questions about the media map so far, or what you've heard Evan say so far? He's talked about those 4 levers that he sees.
It was a lot very fast.
It was a lot fast. That's right. Any questions about that? Yes, I'm sorry, there's one.
Is this on?
Keep talking and hopefully they'll turn it on. There it goes.
I was just wondering if there's a map showing this 5 years ago.
Is there a map showing it 5 years ago?
I only started this 2 years ago. I can show you that if you'd like me to, but I have to pull back the curtain and show this PowerPoint presentation. It's like a little weird, but I'm happy to do it.
Suffice it to say that the first map, just in general terms, right, was what, Evan? It was like, 2
years ago, about 30 months ago.
Mm-hmm. And what was what's the biggest shift? I mean, the planets.
What's the biggest? Here, I will launch this, and then I can talk over it. Let me see if I can make this work. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
That's 2 years ago. This is a year ago, about 15 months ago. This is now. It's a little older than the one I just showed you, but not by much. A couple weeks. That's my logo. And this is 2 years ago. And you can see, watch Facebook Meta over the 2 years. Huge, right? Oh my goodness. Accelerated the business model. Oh my God. Now it's $100 billion less than that. Watch Roku over the 3. Watch Apple and Amazon, who stay pretty consistent over the 3 years. Apple really balloons, gets to 3 trillion at the beginning of this year. I don't have a map for that, unfortunately. But it is at 2.5 now. Microsoft stays pretty steady. The market's way down now, and this doesn't even reflect the last bad few days. And this is all based on market size. But social media's rise and plummet is probably the biggest story. for everybody, because it affects the advertising economy, which affects everybody, and it's global. And so when you watch Meta et al. Be the dominant force on Earth, and now they're really, I would say, circling the drain as standalone entities. And that sounds hyperbolic, but when you look at this rise and fall, and you look at the business models of those social media only companies, it's solely advertising. They see no path to subscription whatsoever. They can talk about Oculus all they want, but it's a 98% advertising driven business, and their advertising is under attack. First from Tim Cook, who will tell you he's the white hat saving your privacy, but really did that to put Meta out of business, to take their advertising business. And in doing so, really decimated that company and everybody around it. Google, which is a social media company, is surviving that because they also do search, and they also do Android TV, and they also do Android phones, 70% of the world's mobile market. So when you think about how this has changed over the last couple of years, you have to kind of think about, here's the biggest, I'll give you the biggest aha. 18 months ago, if I had told you that Disney was going to surpass Netflix in subscribers in 18 months, or in 2 years of launch, you would have told me I was out of my mind, right? If it had happened 18 months ago, everyone would have stopped the business clocks for a couple of days. It happened in August, and literally nobody gave a shit. It just, nobody noticed. To the point where I didn't even correct it on the map for 2 months, and nobody said anything. And then I wrote an article about that, and everybody went, "Oh my God." So, or a month. So it really does show you how quickly the goalposts change, and how quickly major disruptors, Meta, Facebook, can be disrupted. TikTok is the big disruptor now, and they're benefiting from Facebook's downfall. And it is a downfall. They're losing users and they're losing advertisers. Instagram is still running strong, but for how long? TikTok is is dominant, but how long can they stay operating in the United States? And they're not really a social media company. They're much more a video company and a creator company than they are a social media company. We'll see how that turns for them. So the larger message is the rate of change has changed. In 2 years, we crushed whole business models. SVOD is standalone premium SVOD is no longer a business model. It's done.
Yep.
And so that, to me, when things can change that quickly, it's the incremental things that are happening around you on a daily basis that are happening at such a high rate you can't count them. To me, that's the biggest change.
Okay. Any other quick questions before we get to the next bit? Oh, there's one there. Sorry. Yes. Where's the mic gone? He's running. Don't fall. Here he comes. She's down in the front row.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Catherine,
Hi, Catherine.
and I work a lot with AI and ethics, and I'm sort of a bit concerned about how the big tech companies have great monopolies, because there are no overarching world institution that prevents them from having monopolies. Do you see any trends on that, like, changing, or will they just continue to have monopolies? And I have another question, but I guess I'm going to ask that after you've answered this one.
So, between the EU and the United States, you can affect global policy. So everybody has to satisfy the needs of those two territories if they're going to be a media company in the global economy. You have to go to LATAM and Africa and Asia as well. But regarding this map, if you can't operate in those two territories, you're going to have a hard time operating. I think you can affect it, and the UK is currently, and I believe the EU are both investigating both Apple and Alphabet for anti-competitive practices. There are 7 bills in both houses of Congress in the United States around those same things. Currently in the US, Epic is suing Apple in court to change their policies around being able to direct purchasing software in the App Store. Google Play has already changed their policy with Spotify and Epic as a direct result of that case. The UK is investigating Google's domination into smartphone operating systems, but is also looking into their growing operating system business on connected televisions as well. So yes, it's already Apple's move into advertising. And they will make that a $30 billion business in 3 years, probably a $40 billion business in 3 years. All right. Amazon went to $30 billion in about 4 years when they started taking it seriously. Apple's on that same path. They did that in direct result for the idea that they knew they were going to be regulated to change their taxing policies in the App Store. That was going to happen. So they needed a new revenue lever in the App Store. How we regulate their looming dominance of advertising in the App Store is a whole other conversation.
Do you have one more quick question? Yep.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's quick though, but so the current framework which companies are operating on are how can you get as many eyeballs as possible for as long as possible, sort of stealing the time of our lives. Do you see any trends towards changing towards companies wanting to bring us value as opposed to extracting value from us?
Ooh,
Yes.
that's very philosophical.
Yes. Well, I mean, it is, but it's also incredibly practical. So when
Yeah.
you look at the most successful content distribution companies on the planet, they typically bundle a set of services
Yep.
together. And over the last generation, that bundle of services has typically centered around some sort of broadband video phone offering. And it's different in every territory. And then there's just a bundle of content. So if you look at Sky, they bundle a lot of different kinds of content, and they operate in a couple of different territories. Those types of bundles are dying, and they're morphing. They were disrupted by streaming. Netflix is the #1 used service in most territories, streaming service in most territories in Europe, even though it's a US started company. But it's also one of the most used content platforms, broadcast, satellite, or streaming in most territories that it's in as well. And so those types of single video, single purpose properties are now Netflix disrupted those bundles. The new bundle is a different kind of bundle. Netflix is struggling because they're only in video. Spotify has hit a subscription ceiling or plateau because they only do audio. Apple and Amazon do audio, video, gaming, news in the case of Apple, cloud in the case of Apple. In the case of Amazon, they do home delivery for free. And so those types of what I call lifestyle bundles or Maslow's bundles, hierarchy of needs, goes to that higher philosophical question, which is we have to bundle services for the consumer for them to get economies of scale. We've done it through different types of video, audio content bundles in previous years, in previous eras. In the new era, I believe Apple and Amazon, Apple One and Amazon Prime, and Disney's growing bundle of services, ESPN, Disney Plus, Hulu, which will come soon to you here in Europe, or there in Europe, along with cricket on Hotstar until recently, and theme parks.
Theme parks.
Imagine if Disney bundles with Spotify and creates a larger hierarchy of bundles. Imagine if Disney decides to bundle with both Spotify and Peloton. Then suddenly you have a service bundled together that you're touching pretty much daily. And that's a hard service to break up with. Much harder to break up with than, say, Netflix, who once you're done with Squid Game,
So that was a great answer. Thank you. Do you want to, I mean, you've already started a little bit, but the next part was sort of drill
I
down
have a
into
whole lot more data. So
I know. Drill down into streaming TV. I think you had some data sets there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll plow through and I'll take another guess at the break and then we'll go forward. Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. So when you think about the global video, I think a lot of the focus in the room there today, I could be wrong about that, but is around the video segment, which is film and television, but also can include short form and other type of video. But crucially, this is not a map about gaming. This is a map about video. The ecosystem is now an interesting new battle between the boxes or the operating systems and the providers, the publishers. And then you have this band in the middle, starting largely with Amazon and Google, to a certain extent Apple, but crucially also Roku and Samsung and LG, who do both. And now Microsoft is now not only in the gaming business, but they're going to be selling ads for, doing ad operations for Netflix. Another great example of the gravitational pull of the Death Stars. Now, Microsoft is small here. When you look at this map, this is sized by influence. And I'll get back to this in a minute. The big players, Netflix, Disney, Prime, Apple TV Plus increasingly, HBO, Disco Brothers, Max, Paramount Plus largely. And when you look at their Paramount Plus's recent bundle with Walmart in the US, that is a Maslow's bundle. That is a lifestyle bundle. That is a big win for both companies. And you can't sell, okay, so I'll stop here for a second. On the left, you have the makers of TVs and the operating systems of televisions. You can't get to end users increasingly without going through them. On the right, you have the publishers and some operating system folks. You can't sell a television anywhere on the planet if Netflix doesn't come installed and updated on it, or Disney Plus, or increasingly Amazon Prime, or increasingly Apple TV, or increasingly HBO Max. And so that's why this is going to be a true and interesting battle to watch. When you look at where global streaming is headed, and I just have to move my box here so I can see what the heck I'm talking about. This is viewing time by streaming device. In the home, the big screen, the connected television, is now the home screen. Over the last half decade, in the home, for video, not for social media, not even necessarily entirely for gaming, but for video, the smart television, whether a connected television, which is smart TV, or a TV with a dongle that it makes it smart, like Roku or Fire or Chrome Stick, which is connected television. So that equals 70+%, right? Or 70%, is substantially larger than mobile, 11%, okay? And tablet and desktop. When you add game console there, that also goes into smart television. So now it's 77%, right? So it's 7 times mobile. And this was accelerated by COVID. We bought more smart televisions than we thought we would do earlier than we thought we would. We use them in different rooms of the house that we never thought we would use as much as we would. All of those televisions are much, much smarter, which means that we went from dongles to smart televisions at a much faster rate than we would have otherwise. When you look at the device wars, what's fascinating is Roku dominates the globe for video streaming, but they really only dominate the US. So they are the number one streaming platform for video in the US, but they don't even rank in the top 5 in any other territory on the face of the earth. Fire, however, ranks in the top 5 in the US and in the top 5 in a lot of other territories, including and especially Asia. Samsung TV is a global champ, the biggest television maker on the face of the earth. When you add up Google TV and Google Mobile, which is Android mobile, they jump over Samsung and suddenly they're in 3rd place. And that's the plan. They are combining these two services. Asia is the counterbalance to the rest of the world. It's the only market out of the major markets that is more mobile than CTV in streaming, or they're actually equal in Asia. But when you look at the major players here, Apple also, iPad, Apple TV, and iPhone, So 13%, they jump over Fire. Now, their plan is a little bit different because nobody buys Apple TVs because they're too expensive. And iPads are a very flat product. So their job is to get onto Roku, where they now have a button, onto Fire, onto Samsung, where they now exist, onto Android, and all these other places. So the unnatural acceleration of change created a plateau for premium SVODs in first quarter this year, far faster than anyone anticipated. And it started with Netflix, but Netflix was the canary in the SVOD coal mine. And SVOD stands for streaming video on demand. It really means premium no ad streaming video on demand now. But the signals were all there. If you pay attention to change on a daily basis, if you wake up and learn something new about something new every day, we all should have learned about churn 2 years ago. I started writing about this on my Substack newsletter a long time ago, not 2 years ago, but on LinkedIn 2 years ago. In first quarter of 21, they had a negative quarter of sub retention. So for every 100 subs that Netflix brought in the first quarter of 21, they lost 104. Mm-hmm. Second quarter, for every 100 they brought in, they lost 105. Third quarter, it happened again. They had one up quarter and then the crash. So they had subflation, and now they find themselves in a subsession. In first quarter, everyone was upset that they lost any subscribers at all. It had already happened. No one was paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Look at it. In second quarter, people celebrated. In first quarter, their stock went down by 70% because they lost subs for the first time. And they blamed it on Russia, which was smoke. In second quarter, their stock went up 10% the next day because they only lost 1.2 million subs. That's how fast change happens. And that's what's happened to premium ad-only SVODs. Now, look at what's happened to all SVODs over the last couple of years. When you look at, so this is, the red is canceled subs, so cancellations on a quarterly basis. This is any cancellation across any premium streaming pay service. And this is off of, just so you get creeped out, data off of banking apps like Zelle on mobile phones, which you already signed up for because you clicked the terms and conditions on this banking app on your phone without reading them. Sorry. This company, Antenna, uses that data to track SVOD subscriptions. And you can see, yeah, the subscriptions have been somewhat healthy for a while, but look at the distance between canceled subs and net ads, which is the number of subs retained after cancellation. So for every 100 subs added, or for, anyway, only 10% of the subs, or less than 10% of the subs in second quarter 2022 of all SVOD stuck around. The crisis here is, again, it's subflation. The average quarter has 35% retention, which means out of every 100 subs, new subs, only around 35 stick around for all premium SVODs. Think about that business model for a second. That's why it sucks so bad. Mm-hmm. It's awful. You can't sleep. All you think about is the cancellation. Once you hit subflation as an ecosystem, it's now, instead of changing the channel, they're subscription swapping. The subscription swappers, serial churners, are the new channel changers. And what you can see is this is no longer, hey, we're bringing new people into the ecosystem. We're really it's a hit-driven business. Wherever the hits are, that's where the subs will go. It's on Squid Game this month. Great, I'm there. I'll churn out before the next pay cycle. And that's what's happening to Netflix. But it's also happening to every single other SVOD who lives and dies by individual hits, which is why Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime was a stroke of genius. They launched it with Lord of the Rings, but it's 17 weeks in a row of 15 million people watched it live on Thursday night on Amazon, not on Amazon, not on cable in the US, not on broadcast, but on Amazon Prime. That was a game changer. That's every year for a decade. That's 17 weeks every year. That is a utility. Those types of things will be harder to break up with than I came in for 8 episodes, I finished it, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be trading subs between all the different services, which is why a Maslow's bundle, where you can include Thursday Night Football and home delivery of your pogo stick into one bundle. In the US, consumer-supported premium ad-free content has been dominant through last year. This will be substantially more even in 22, and in global, it's been the opposite a little bit. And these two models are going to meet each other, and we are moving towards. In the US, we call it pay TV. It's not really something that a lot of folks in Europe necessarily have, but Sky is definitely that. And there are obviously many, many, many other versions of it. But you have much more public television here than we do in the US. So we call that Sky et al. Pay TV. And then there's been SVOD, which has been ad free. And then there's been AVOD, which is ad-supported video on demand. And then there's FAST, more in the US than there is in the EU, but there is, and that's free ad-supported streaming television. And all the free and pay models, they're not going to stay apart. The Plutos and even the BBCs and the Netflixes models are not going to stay separated by walled gardens forever. They're going to blend. HBO Max is now signing up more new ad-supported subscribers than they are ad-free. Hulu has 60% ad-supported subscribers. Paramount Plus, Netflix will be a probably 50-50 model eventually. And all of the free services that you have out there are going to have to find a model that they can support themselves with some sort of ongoing recurring revenue, even if that's taking donations as a subscription, or some other sort of ongoing revenue, licensing, and advertising. And they're going to crash into what I call SAVOD, subscription ad-supported video on demand, or pay CTV. We are hitting subscription fatigue. And yes, Spotify, after a bad first quarter in subscribers, went back up in second quarter. But if you look at all their second quarter subscription signups, it is not a good trend. That's what the arrow shows. And this Spotify is the lowest churn in entertainment, but they are signing up fewer and fewer paid subscribers. They have tons. They have actually way more free subscribers with ads than they have subscribers, but they're a 90% subscription business. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Apple just sponsored the Super Bowl halftime show with Rihanna in the US. That means they're going to start taking music more seriously suddenly. They have not been taking it seriously. They are going to start taking it seriously. They added subscription podcasts last year. They're taking audio seriously. Spotify is going to need to change its business model if they're going to combat Amazon and Apple, and then Amazon Music, which is coming up right behind it, who now owns Wondery, and a couple of other services. So this is not a video-only challenge. This is a content-wide challenge. You have to blend your business models, and you have to partner and connect your content offerings with other higher needs that the consumer has. I'm going to plow through to the end, and I think we can have a conversation there if that's okay.
That's fine. Yep.
So this is breaking news. So this is a new study I did with a survey of 15,000 consumers in the US, granted, but across all age demographics and income demographics, about what they will pay for. Most will not pay. 52% of consumers in the United States would rather not pay for content. But if they do pay, and almost all of them do pay, they will pay for these things. This is kind of how they prioritize them. And when you look at this, you say, hey, movies, scripted TV, obviously that's the most important one. It absolutely is. It's the price of admission. Because everyone has it. No one doesn't have it. And if you have the hot show year round, great, you have a business model. But if you're going to ebb and flow, if you're going to play the hit driven model, it's going to be very, very difficult to differentiate yourself, and you're going to have serial churners. Sports, on the other hand, Indian Premier League cricket has driven 45 to 50 million subscribers, paying subscribers for Hotstar, Disney Hotstar India, for a long time. In a market where subscribers don't traditionally pay and subscribe to content offerings. Disney just gave that up to Reliance, who's a major local Indian company that does many different things, including television. Now, Disney retained the broadcast rights, so we'll see what happens there. But now, if you offer in India, if you offer sports and movies and scripted TV, suddenly you're much more important to that consumer. You're actually, about 40% more important to that subscriber. If you add docuseries, which again, I think everybody has, you can see what it adds. Now imagine if you add audio and podcasts and news and reality shows. Now, we have this cut across many different demographics, but here it is for 18 to 34-year-olds. Fascinatingly, and I think this is kind of mind-blowing, the number one demographic group willing to pay 63% for content is 18 to 34. The number one. That blew my mind. I expected it to be 35 to 54-ish. We have it broken down by different segments, but that was where I thought the sweet spot would be. Not college students and Gen Zers, but then think about Spotify. 190 million, growing to 200 million paid subscribers. Think about Valve. 60 million daily active users for a pay streaming gaming service. Think about Fortnite, where people make microtransactions on it. You can roll your eyes at the metaverse all you want, but every day on Roblox and Minecraft, if you have kids who are between the ages of 5 and 25, and they play Minecraft or Roblox or Fortnite, you're seeing all these credit card charges, microtransactions, which is the same thing as paying for content. And look at podcasts and audio. So imagine if Netflix and Spotify, what if Netflix bought Spotify? Or what if Netflix just offered a Spotify add-on? Hulu has done that for college students in the US for 5 years now. And it's been one of the most successful bundles out there. When you look at income, this is full-time employment. Movies and scripted TV stays there, docuseries stays there. But look at the importance of sports, interestingly. But look at other, 10%. Look at other, 8% for 18 to 34-year-olds. Look at other for all respondents. Other. It grows even bigger the more money you have. The convenience factor, that significant other, I like to call it. For Amazon, it's home delivery. And a really elegant bundling. Remember, they're reselling Discovery Plus. They're reselling Showtime. They're reselling Stars. They're reselling all these other services. They're about to get HBO Max back too. So it's an even larger Maslow's bundle than even what's Amazon's only. Apple One, it offers fitness and news and your cloud and an increasingly better music service and gaming. Disney can offer parks. That other is going to be increasingly important over time. Sports is where a lot of money is going to be moving over the next 5 years. So if you're a maker or buyer or seller of content, every major streaming platform now has sports. Why? Because look at how big sports is for all respondents and specifically for people with money. Cricket, Premier League, every major streamer except Netflix has a utility called sports. Watch that space because it's going to be really, really important. Apple is going to, the Super Bowl halftime sponsorship is a precursor to Apple getting NFL Sunday Ticket. And for Europeans, that's what we would call football Sunday ticket, I guess. And it's an access to every game every Sunday. That's going to be a, pardon my pun, game changer as well. These are sports, are live sports, news, and local are going to be table stakes for the streaming wars. And back to this map. That's why when you look in the middle here, these are all really important players. Samsung, Amazon. And so quick beat on this. Right now, 99.9% of the operating systems for smartphones on the face of the earth are controlled by two companies, Google and Apple. Amazon and Google, Alphabet, are trying to do the same thing to smart TVs. So that is a major force at play. Samsung's the biggest television seller on the face of the earth. They still only have about 14, 15% of the overall market. Roku, everybody thinks they're so giant. Like, remember, 28% global streaming, 6% of actual CTV operating systems on the planet Earth are Roku. It's because they do so much streaming in the streaming leader, the US, that they have so much streaming across their platform. However, to the right, starting with BBC and Reliance and Bertelsmann and Mediaset and Viaplay and Telefonica, companies who do both distribution and publishing, but also companies like Canal, which is owned by Vivendi. These companies are going to have increasing leverage in the marketplace because you're not going to be able to sell a Samsung television in these markets without their apps and without their cooperation. They also tend to have the better relationships at retail in these territories as well. They also have the backing of the governments there, although I think the economic backing of the governments for these platforms is going to diminish over the next generation greatly. And so you're going to see the commercial players rise in importance there. But I think it increasingly is going to be the local commercial players like Reliance in India, like Vivendi, like Telefonica, like Mediaset, like Viaplay, who are going to have, like Bertelsmann, who are going to play, like BBC, if they play their cards right. I'm sorry, not BBC, which is obviously not commercial, but if the BBC can take where they are today, I apologize for that. If they could take their pole position where they are today, 10 times the usage of Netflix in the UK, and turn it into a true commercial venture, if the government will allow them, meaning can they support themselves through donation subscriptions, through some sort of recurring revenue model, they can make the play. You also have 600 local, that's what these red boxes here and the big red box on the left signify, 600 local television manufacturers who control 42% of the television market on the face of the earth, who have no permanent affiliation with operating systems. They too will play an increasingly important role, and that's why the importance of those local content players. So I'll stop there. This is my scorecard for whether your media platform or your media company or your content company can survive and thrive for the next 10 years. But I'll stop here, take a breath, take a sip, take some questions, and probably be finished because I'm probably over time.
Yeah, well, we're definitely over time, but they're wrapped. They're wrapped, Evan, so that's good. Any questions from this segment? I mean, this is a lot of information, right, Peter?
Yeah. We
go ahead.
Had a panel, I don't know, can you hear me?
Not yet, but he's coming.
Hi, Evan, it's Peter. You were just mentioning the BBC. We just had a panel here in the conference on broadcast video on demand, right? Discussing this for the German market. And I was really wondering by what you're saying is that it is so interesting to see that people are asking for platforms that own different types of content, not only feature and serial drama and docus, but also sports and news and all that kind of stuff. So the broadcasters, they have this, right? Of course, they are not, as you said with the BBC, they're not allowed to make money out of this. But
Today,
sorry? Today, that's why I'm asking. My idea is that with so many more users in the background and so much more content in the background, would the BVOD not be the streaming king of tomorrow?
meaning the BBC VOD.
BBC or the German public broadcasters, whatever.
Oh, right. So yeah, absolutely. But you have to. I mean, look. I don't know that. Actually, I can give you the data on Germany, German streaming market. I happen to have it right here. You know, the number one is Amazon Prime. Number two is Netflix. Number three is Disney Plus, and then there's a big drop off to RTL. ZDF, ARD are number 1 and 2 in the broadcast market. You know, I think if they can find a way to turn that into a commercial entity, I agree. Like the BBC, they probably would have far more usage locally. More importantly, they could charge more. Because there are fewer people, this is a weird set of economics, but because there are fewer people with higher interest, you can charge them more because you're hyper serving a local need. Mm-hmm. And I know that the consumers will balk at that, but they are also going to balk if their favorite programming on art goes away. They will riot. And so that's where I think you have to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and charge through modeling for the new era with a public trust. You still have to operate in the public trust, but you have to find an economic model that works. I think PBS is doing a better and better model of it in the US. I think BBC could turn that on very quickly, given how well they distribute their content digitally. They have been a digital leader in the UK since day one. It doesn't seem to me that any of the public broadcasters in Germany yet have that kind of level of sophistication. In Australia, they seem to have it. In Canada, they seem to have it. To me, just based on usage, I don't see that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. You know, what's the pivot for public service broadcasters to sort of be able to work in the new world? Tim Davie, who runs the BBC, was actually on a panel the day I left, which I guess was yesterday, and he was saying, you know, the license fee, which is basically a tax on anybody who has a television, is the least bad or the least worst way to do it. But he says, I'm open to other suggestions. And obviously the BBC is working with ITV on BritBox now, which is an international paid service. Oh yes, I have a question here. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody else?
I guess the question, my one question is, can you have fewer people? Can you have an opt-in idea?
Can you have an opt-in?
I would like to
and charge more.
And charge more, exactly. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Catherine Böhner. This rings a sad story from my past. I was the technology director of the combined VOD service offering from ARD and ZDF. It was called Germany's Gold. It got banned by the antitrust office in Germany in 2015. So, of course, and the project still is in discussion, but of course it's never been done because there was a ban from the antitrust office. And so, yes, this is a really, really important thing that we say, okay, we do have the eyeballs in Germany with the public broadcasters, but we also know that it's a global play. So, to be honest, what we should do is look at that from a European perspective.
There's a really good market for those channels internationally. Yeah. It's not as big as it is in Germany, obviously, but you're absolutely right.
And so what we should definitely look at is, because also we know that this is a very international-driven business. It's economies of scale. So what would be really important is that we take a look at what should public broadcasters do on a European scale, because I think that is where we would have the leverage.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, can they work together in some way, shape, or form?
Well, I would tell you the model is Hulu. So the disadvantage of having really good regulators is that you block innovation sometimes. In America, those same parties, which were commercial and not public, created Hulu, which probably should have been an antitrust trigger, but it wasn't. And they basically sold their content to themselves and still do.
Still do.
but it created, it's now the fifth largest or sixth largest channel distributor, so cable distributor in the United States, and it has great programming, and it's going to turn into, I think, one of the most important components of Disney's business. I'm not saying you have to go commercial like that, but if ARD and ZDF could combine into can collaborate into one service for the public trust in Germany, and then distribute it the way BBC Worldwide does for itself globally, and put commercial properties around it that way, I do think there's a great pathway to at least a diversified revenue stream, not so reliant on taxing the users. I would, though, go back to in Germany, allowing people to opt in, paying more, and then putting ads in front of those who don't opt in. That seems to be the model that we're headed to. I'm not exactly sure why the governments of these countries would not allow that. I would see it staying outside news, perhaps, but I do believe that's probably something that should be explored. That may be naive of me.
Well, I think there's a mind shift change, and certainly we've still got competition regulators who are still thinking, I think, somewhat in the old model. I mean, we're just seeing a potential merger in France between M6 and TF1 just got banned for competition reasons because they were going to own, I don't know, 70% of the advertising market. But if you look at who they're facing up to on, some of your maps, Evan, it's obviously, they're little fish in a very big global puddle. Another question for Evan? Anything else that comes to mind? Yes? Catherine's again. Now, this is your third question, so you're really getting in here. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, since no one else is asking, I would
That's
otherwise
fine.
not ask. But
Go ahead.
So when you sort of talk about these companies and then that the growth is decreasing, it sounds like you're saying that that's like a very bad thing.
For what? For social media?
For like for Spotify, for instance, or like the churn, and I'm just wondering, is this a market where like the winner takes it all, or like can't these companies not like stop growing and just stay where they are and just like stay there? Or
Well, I help people sleep at night, but there's a number of different factors there. Spotify's never been profitable.
Yeah, they need
So
to grow to get
if
to
they were a
profit.
charity organization, absolutely,
It's
totally
absolutely-
fine.
I don't think
But
Daniel
they
Ek
have
thinks of it as a
shareholders.
charity.
But
They
that's-
have shareholders
that's because
who
they-
invested.
but I mean, they're not profitable because they want to keep growing. Like if they stopped using all their money for growth,
I
like
don't think so. I'm not
No?
sure that's
Not
exactly how that would
sure
work.
that's
but
the case.
I just don't understand like how much growth is enough. It just sounds like they just want to take over the whole world.
So
I
welcome to corporatization.
I personally don't care. I just read the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Spotify has plateaued in their subscription growth. Their advertising growth is not fast enough to help if their subscribers start to churn. It's not so much that they're not growing, but remember, for every net ad, there's a lot of people who cancel. So it's a balance. The only time they had any kind of cancellation that stuck in any shape or form was when Joe Rogan went Rogan in January, right? People canceled and did not come back. It was the only time it happened, and since it's been tracked.
Right.
So, but if Apple and Amazon, look at this map for a second. If Apple and Amazon suddenly are like, I think I'm going to play around in music really serious today. They haven't barely been concentrating. They haven't even really been concentrating. It's kind of there. It's on their platforms, but it's really a side hustle. Seriously, a side hustle. What Apple brings in music pays for Spotify, maybe, but it is 1/10 of what it earns on a yearly basis. Apple and Amazon can lose shit tons of money putting Spotify out of business. That's the point. So if their growth stops and then suddenly Apple and Amazon make better products through their Maslow's bundles, then Spotify has nowhere to go because their advertising business is just not large. It's 10%, 11% of their overall business. So it isn't necessarily about the growth. You're right. if they said we have zero churn and we are never going to churn a subscriber, and we're going to beat Amazon and Apple, I would say, okay, good luck. I don't think that's a business plan.
Right. Thank you. Another question? No?
Yes,
Sorry. Yep, can't see you.
Professor Shapiro, I have a $100 question for you. My name is Doc Wolf, and I remember Vivendi buying this place here 20 years ago. But now they lost effect because now it was sold to a Canadian company. Why did Vivendi not take the chance to use a content supplier like Babelsberg to make more profit? That's the first question. It's very European. So the second question is very US-based. Who's going to take over Roku?
Roku, right. Who's going to buy Roku?
Yeah, who is going to buy Roku?
That's a great question. So I want to go to this slide here as I talk over this. So these are the 5 criteria I think you need to grade companies on over the next, well, right now, to understand how they're going to do in the next 10 years. And so are they a utility? Do their users use them every day? Do their users get more value than they ask in return? Does the company have good values? Do you have a cult? Do you have super fans? Do you service these 3 generations? And do you have a diversity of revenue? Roku does not have a diversity of revenue. They are a one market business, and they are basically almost entirely advertising right now. So they have been floating sounds like they're going to be bought. I can't say that's definitely going to happen, but when you look at the size of them on the map here, you know, they were I think 5 times as big, 6 times as big a year and a half ago. I think, you know, when Amazon would be precluded from buying them. I think Google would be precluded from buying them. Microsoft just made an ad deal with Netflix. Microsoft has the largest gaming company on the face of the earth and a subscription gaming product that's awesome. The 8th largest social media company on the face of the earth. One of, I think, the biggest productivity subscription products on the face of the earth. And now they're connected to the biggest premium video platform on the face of the earth. If they added Roku, I think that would be a major coup, and I think it would help both companies. And I think it would be one of the only major purchases of that size by a company that big that would get through regulators. Crucially, I don't think Amazon, Alphabet, Apple could get that through regulators. I don't think Meta is going to be able to make that happen. Samsung wouldn't be able to get that through and would never do it.
No.
And then on the Vivendi question, you know, the amount of times I've banged my head against a wall telling my bosses inside big corporate media that the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and they're like, I'd rather wait until around midnight to make this decision. I mean, it's more than the dots on this fucking map. So there is this thing that happens to corporate media, and Netflix and Meta and Roku and Spotify are all great examples of this, which is the disruptors come along, they tear apart the ecosystem, everybody changes their business models in response. The disruptors become the man. And I would say the man or woman, but they traditionally act like the man, which is don't look at anybody. They know better.
Right.
I'll announce that we're putting ads on our platform during my first quarter earnings call before telling any of the other executives that are on the call with me. You know, then they get disrupted, sometimes by the people they disrupted in the first place, Disney, Samsung. So, you know, I can't tell you why corporate bosses do what corporate bosses do other than that they're corporate bosses.
That's right. Exactly right. Well, I think we could stay here all night, but I'm afraid we have to get on to the next thing, which is, I think, some drinks for us here, because it's a little later than it is where you are, Evan. Thank you so much for all your insights.
Can I leave you with just one last parting shot here?
Sure. Give us a parting shot. That would be fantastic.
Just because I have this animation. So in the media wars, single platform players, people who only do one thing, whether that's gaming, video, audio, or social, will struggle for profits and eyeballs against these big tech Death Stars who do not need to profit in that segment to take over market share.
Yep.
Disruptors will get disrupted, as I just said. Change will come from where you least expect it. Disney, Reliance, and the universe is always consolidating. These gravitational spheres are going to have gravity. There's going to be a tremendous amount of consolidation that goes on this planet. So being aware of that change on a daily basis will be really helpful.
And that's why it's so important to have you there charting it all for us, because it's very helpful to have you updating your charts, even when you don't do it for a couple of months when you miss something, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. It helped me.
Exactly. That was really wonderful. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Yes? Yes? Good. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't hear it. Did they like it?
You gave us a lot to think about. Wonderful, very full of data and marvelous imagery, and we love the pizzas and the whole thing. So it was great. So thank you so much, Evan Shapiro, for being with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.